The opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Cable 14, its sponsors, or its shareholders, Cogeco Cable, Shaw Cable, and Source Cable Limited.
On today's show, we're going to talk about a different type of persistence, a mother's love of persistence. And I have two incredible women with me on the show today. We're going to talk with Shirley first, who her life changed on a hot Saturday afternoon when her 12-year-old son Robbie went to deliver his papers and vanished without a trace. And Shirley, thank you for being here and sharing your story. And I know that was 45 years ago that happened. Yes. And I mean, as a mother, wow, that must have been just quite an ordeal for you. But I know you as a person, and I know how you've persisted, and that's what I really find so special about you, is how you've taken this situation and really made a mark for yourself and helped a lot of people through their trials and tribulations as well.
Thank you.
So let's go back to, 45 years ago. And maybe you can just give us a little bit of a history of what happened.
Okay. I was working at a church camp, and my son was with us, and then we went to the beach so he could have a swim and cool off, and then he was going home to do his newspapers, and I was staying to help with the supper meal because they didn't have enough help that weekend. And when we got home, I didn't see my papers. I sent the other boys out to get them, and he wasn't there. And so we went back to the corner, and the papers were still there, so we knew he hadn't come home. And so it began a long search, a long ordeal, which has been 45 years. I don't know any more than that, what I've just told you. There has never been any trace of any kind of anything. We just, and because it's doesn't have a closure, it comes up quite often. Like if they find a child's body and they test, we have to wait for forensic and what have you for them to find out, and then they find it's not him. And so we keep going on and keep going on. The one thing I wanted to say about persistence is in 1963, I became a Christian. I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And I was so hungry for him, I searched and searched. And so I was a fairly new Christian, just 5 years with the Lord. But I had learned about a God of love, and I knew that God did not do this to me. I knew that there was an enemy out there that didn't like God or his people, and that he would do anything to try to destroy our relationship. And so my walk with God has been what has kept me, because every time something happened, I'd be on my knees asking him to help me through, to show me what to do, and he became my comfort and my strength. So that is what has kept me through the years. You know, it's going to be 50 years this August since I accepted Jesus, and I've never turned my back on him for anything, but I've been through a lot of things.
Well, you certainly have, and now, I mean, I think I remember you telling me that the night that he vanished, people got together and were praying with you, and that's really what got you through that horrible, horrible night. And, you know, just even how you've gone on to help other women, help other people, speaking and talking about how you can overcome things, I think is really quite incredible.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's no barriers in the churches when something like this happens. We all have our walls up, but they come down when there's a need. And that was one of the wonderful things that I saw, was the body of Christ came together and prayed with us, and people we didn't know, Catholic people, lit candles, and they let us know, and I thought that was a comfort and a strength. Through the years, in 2001, my husband passed away, and that year they found a skull. We didn't know where it was, where they'd found it. We just heard it, and so my son and Ross and I, we thought we'd better let them know about our case. And it was up in Holland Landing, which was about 25 minutes from where Robbie was last seen. And it wasn't him, but we really knew that we needed to reach out and help because there's others going through these things. So it became a time that we were able to reach out to others a little more. And so through the years, because there's been nothing found, and my son Ross, his persistence is in trying to find what happened. Mine has been in my faith in God that someday I will see him again.
And I did talk to Ross, and he couldn't be here with us today, but he did say that that's one thing that he wants to persist through, to find out what happened. And that must be the hardest thing, not to know what happened. Yeah. You know, the unanswered questions. Would be
I came to a time where I had to deal with that. You know, there's areas that you keep running into, and one was my husband wanted to move in to Hamilton because this happened up in Lake Simcoe. And the thought of moving, what had happened if my son would come home. And but anyway, life goes on. And I also had a baby daughter at that time. She was 10 months old. And when she wanted to be fed, she wanted to be fed. When she needed to be changed, she needed to be changed. Yeah. So the rest of my family had to be looked after. And so that's where God gave me the strength too, to just do the everyday things without a lot of sorrow, or I just had to trust in the Lord with all my heart and lean not on my own understanding.
Yeah, that's great.
And so that's what I did.
Mm-hmm. And you wrote a book, and it's called Vanished. And so what inspired you to write the book?
Mainly because people kept saying it needed to be put into. At first, I fought it. I didn't want to do that. Because it's hard you have to relive everything when you write it in a book.
That's right.
And so sometimes you've gone on, and so I had to let God help me to remember the things that, you know, you kind of set aside. And because when you want to reach out and help others, then you do what you can to get the word out.
Yeah. And you started a foundation called Courage to Cope a few years ago, a nonprofit organization. And I sat on that board with you.
Yes,
and, you know, it's hard when it's a nonprofit to get things up and running, but your whole mission there was to help other people who have been through the same thing. And that was one thing that really has helped you, is to, you know, when someone's in need, they can talk to someone who's gone through what they've gone through.
You know, what we found is, like, what do you say? Sometimes we found that just a hug from somebody that's gone through it, because a lot of people can say, oh, I know what you're going through, but they don't. Not really. But when you that's what my main thing was to do, was just, I know what you're going through. I've been there, and I know what it's like, and just hugging them, just letting them, encourage them, to listen to them tell their story. That's important too, because everybody has a different way of seeing things. So that's mainly what we did. Because when we started it, it was after that skull had been found, and it turned out it was an older man. But we realized there's a family out there that don't know where their father is, or whoever he was, and there's many, and it's even more prevalent today than it was back then. You hear about it more now. And so it was just, what do we do? What can we do? So we just started the Courage to Cope, to just say, we're here. We know what you're going through. And if you just need a hug, that's what we'll give you.
We're there for. That's right.
Yes. Yeah.
And over the years, I mean, with technology, things have advanced a great deal. And at one point, you found out that the boxes were, you know, the boxes were in a place that they weren't accessible, right?
Yes.
And so that was another hurdle that you had to get over when you had that.
Yeah, actually, when they changed the zonings, and when computers came in, we found that when this skull was found, when we went to search it, and they had no record of our son being missing, no record of him at all. But I said, every time I moved, I sent you a letter to let you know where I lived. I thought they must have thought I was crazy. But anyway, the police officer said, let me find them. He said, give me time and I will find them. And he did search them out, and there was all my letters. They'd been stamped, they'd been received, but put in a box, and they were in a basement. And so there was many years where there wasn't any record whatsoever. And then recently the same thing happened again. Somebody, friend of mine up where we lived, they had put it in the little local paper, and the police come said, "What is this?" So the one thing that the police, they did come, and that's when they took the DNA, which is not too many years ago, because they didn't have that back then.
Right.
And they said, "We apologize because we've dropped the ball on you."
Wow.
And so that was an amazing thing, because they had no idea. He said, "I thought every child that is ever missing is on the computer, and here we find that there isn't."
So you've had a lot of emotional hurdles over the last 45 years, and so what is your, what gets you through it every day?
Prayer, just trusting in the Lord, and I, just to keep prayer for the rest of my family and for those that are around me, and just keep going on, keep healthy, try to do what I can do to keep myself in the place where I can be of help to my own family as well as others.
Absolutely. So when you go out and you're speaking, what is your message, Shirley?
The keeping power of Jesus. No matter what you're going through, no matter what you're facing, He's always there, and there is an answer in the Bible. He is the answer. And especially today, they're reaching out. We're come to a time where there's no hope. I have hope. My hope is not here. My hope is that someday, whatever it is, I'll find out. I'll see Robbie again. And the thing about when I first became a Christian for 5 years, I was so excited. Everything I learned, my kids learned. And so Robbie knew Jesus as his Savior, and he knew he could count on him. Yeah. So whatever he had to go through, the police did have a pedophile that they said they'd been caught, and he had been released for some reason they couldn't understand. And but they did trace him, and they interviewed him with the lie detector, but nothing. So, I don't need to know, because God knows. And for whatever reason, He didn't answer my prayer, and maybe I was just too afraid to find out after a while. Yeah. But anyway, my God is faithful to me, and I want to be faithful to Him.
Well, your inspiration is incredible, and I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
And stay tuned. We'll be right back, and we'll talk to our next guest, Diana.
A woman came in dressed in what appeared to be a nurse's uniform, a hospital smock. A short time after being there, she spoke to the child's mother and told her that she had to take her baby downstairs for some blood work.
She got the child. She's now left the hospital.
The mother is extremely distraught, as is the father. I think to describe it as they're in shock. If the woman that took this child today is watching, please reconsider what you have done and bring the child back.
I'm a complete stranger. You might be well leery of strangers at this point, but I just had to send a small note. On the day that you lost your little one, I was driving to town to get groceries. It was 8 o'clock at night.
About the loss of a child that everyone takes time.
When I heard on the radio that
You see a lot of suffering, but when it involves a child, it touches us all the more, and we tolerate it all the less. Empty Cradle by Diana Walsh.
It's a nightmare before Christmas.
Wow, Diana, that's really incredible, an incredible piece. And welcome to Diana Walsh, who's here with us now. And
are you going to start crying already?
No, Diana and I have been friends since grade school, so this is a bit of an emotional time because we went through it all together.
Yes.
And so, Diana, thanks for being here, first of all. And Shelby's beautiful.
Thank you.
She's a beautiful girl, and so I just want to talk to you because Shirley's story was different in that she never found Robbie, and thank goodness and thank God that you found Shelby, and that day must have been a nightmare for you. Absolutely. And you've come through that and learned a lot of lessons from that, and the reason why you wrote Empty Cradle, one of the reasons that you wrote Empty Cradle. But let's just go back to that time for a minute and just You know, I mean, the elation of when you found her. Let's go from there, because I think everybody could understand the trauma.
You would ask me that, because that's one thing I can't talk about. Seriously, I mean, the absolute joy in coming off of this extreme low to this extreme high was just such a shock to the body, and it really is something that I can't put into words.
Yeah.
Just the end of a culmination of the most worst day of our life, you know, which is one of the reasons why I wrote the book, is because I have such difficulty talking about the whole experience.
Yeah.
And my hope was that I could answer so many questions by writing the book, letting people know what happened behind the scenes, not only with myself, but with the perpetrator. But the funny thing is, now that the book's out there and it's flying off the shelves, I'm right back where I started in that I'm talking about it again. So it's a vicious circle, but I am able to answer a lot of the questions that people have in the book, and it has been something that people have been drawn to, I think, not only because people can relate to the story of a child. If you don't have a child, you love a child somewhere, so you can relate to that. Yeah. But also the vulnerability of opening yourself up to talking about pain, fear, loss. People can just relate to that, and
I think a lot of times people feel like what they're going through is they're alone, and yet when they hear of someone else, it's like okay to have those feelings and go through fears and different things, different emotions.
And not only alone, I think people feel that if they express the fact that they're in pain or that they're afraid of something, they feel that that's a sign of weakness, if you will. And really, I think true strength comes a lot of times in showing that weakness and showing your vulnerability, because nobody wants you to be perfect. That just gives them something that they can't live up to. So, you know, in showing your own perfection, they're reflected in a mirror, and it leaves them open to talk about their own truths and their own feelings. So I've had some really tremendous conversations with perfect strangers since they've read this, sharing their stories, which is really interesting and really endearing also.
That people feel comfortable enough to come up and talk to you about
like
that.
I've been doing book signings and going to book clubs and such, and when they'll read a passage, they'll just feel compelled to tell me something that happened to them, something very intimate, something very personal, and it's been very moving to hear all these stories shared with me. Really, it's been really something.
Now, it's been 19 years now, 19 years in December, and then from that experience, a movie came out, a made-for-TV movie that shows around every Christmas. And how long after that happened did they make the movie?
I think it was about maybe 2 years after the kidnapping. The movie's called Stolen Miracle, which is produced by Portfolio Entertainment, and it has come out every year. They've shown that in December now. Yeah.
And it must have been hard for you to, did you ever to sit down and watch it?
I watched it prior to its release. It was part of the agreement that they would let me see it before it went to air so that we could sort of brace ourselves for it. So it does deviate somewhat from the story for dramatic purposes, but there's a lot of similarities there, so it was difficult to watch. We haven't watched it since that first time before it was released.
Who needs to relive it?
Yeah, we don't need to see the movie. We saw it firsthand.
You saw it up close and personal,
exactly,
right? Yeah. Well, I read your book, and I have to say I loved it. I mean, I know you, and I know your life, and I know the story, but when I couldn't put the book down, I read it. It's probably the fastest book I ever read.
Terrific, thank you.
And I was really captured by how you went, from the perpetrator to your side to her side, and very well written. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And even just pouring everything out. I mean, I know you as a person, but there was things in here I was like, wow, I didn't realize that, or I didn't realize this. So even if it's just, I found it very not entertaining, but very what's the word? I was captured, enlightening. I was very, I couldn't put it down.
Good.
So what made you want to write the book?
Well, I guess, like I mentioned, it was difficult to talk about, so I thought writing it would be a lot easier. But I had been thinking about it for a while, but I hesitated because it's really opening up a whole can of worms. And like Shirley talked about, you really have to relive a lot of that pain to search your memory for the particular details. So I hesitated because of that. And also, I do talk in the beginning, as you know, a little bit about my family of origin, and just to sort of help put the kidnapping in context. And I was hesitant to make other people uncomfortable, so that was why I hesitated. But when I sort of came to peace that this was my story, it was a way to help me heal, I just ran with it. And once I stopped, it was like an addiction. I couldn't stop. I was driving home one night and mentioned to my sister Maureen, who you know, I'm thinking of writing this book. And I just kind of waited. And if she had said, no, don't do it, I probably would have said, okay, I'm not doing it. But she said, yeah, I think you should. So I went home and wrote, and I don't think I stopped for 3 months, just blocked everything out and didn't stop till it was all down. And it was healing, and it's helped me to be a little bit desensitized to talk about it more so than I could have before. Yeah. So it was healing.
I mean, for most moms, letting your kids go out and play, I mean, by themselves, the first time you let them go out and, you know, they go to school by themselves, the first time they go out to play by themselves, when they go to high school by themselves, like all of those, any mother can understand those, that letting go. How did you get over that? How did you get to the point of being able to let her go outside?
I'll let
play?
you know when I get over that, because I'm not there. I don't think I'll ever be there. I am hypervigilant. My family's very patient with me because of the situation, and they understand. But it goes part and parcel with undergoing a trauma of that nature. There was some post-traumatic stress syndrome that I experienced after that, which includes really a hypervigilance to threat. So I'm still very cautious and constantly want to know where everybody is, what they're doing. And I don't know if that's ever going to change. But I think most moms are like that, you know. Yeah. I think I get a bad rap because I don't think I'm all that different than the other moms, but because of what's happened, people say, oh, that's because of, you know, what happened, humor her kind of thing, you know. But I think we're all like that to a degree. I'm sure you are with your kids too.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So what message do you want to leave people with?
Well, if anything, of course, there is an issue here. There's over 350 children that go missing in Canada annually. So it is something that hasn't gone away, and I think people really need to be aware of your surroundings, follow your instincts, be cautious, and feel empowered, not only with your children, but with other children. So, you know, in the hospital setting, which was where our abduction occurred, if something doesn't feel right, you have every right to go with that baby for tests, you know, even if it's just to be weighed, you know, you just get up, you go with that nurse, or to question if you don't feel something's right, make a phone call. Don't let your child go if you're uncomfortable, even in a school setting. Now the teachers are going to hate me, but you have every right to go into that classroom if something doesn't feel right. So not only with your own child, follow your instincts, but if you see something in the community that doesn't look right or feel right, to follow up on it. Because you hear these children that have been found, that have gone missing, and the neighbors say, you know, there was something not right there. There was something odd, but they don't call because they don't want to intrude on people. They think they're probably mistaken. But you should call if you see something odd, because you could be the person who reunites someone like Shirley and Robbie. You just don't know. Yeah. To be aware and follow your instincts.
And a woman's intuition is never wrong. I mean, so any time that I've listened to my intuition, it never takes me down the wrong path. So true. When I don't listen to that little voice in my head or knot in my stomach or lump in my throat, it usually ends up going the way that I don't want it to go. Yeah. So I think what you say is like so true. Just really, you know, listen to your instincts, listen to your intuition, and don't be afraid that you're going to hurt someone's feelings if you have to say, no, I want to know this. Right. Because a lot of times we're afraid of what we're going to hurt the other person's feelings instead.
And there's certain individuals we think are beyond reproach, such as doctors and, you know, teachers, that we can't challenge them, but we can. We are no different, no less than them. There's no one that we can't challenge. And follow our instincts.
For sure. Well, thank you, Diana, for being here. It's great to have you on and sharing your story. And the book, Empty Cradle, be sure to get it because it's a great read. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.